everything, you know, we do that's focused on a UK audience has a London-centric like lens on it, then there's so many people we just end up not speaking to.
Now, I want to talk about talent residing outside of this lovely bubble that we're in London. Marshall, you know that I'm coming to you.
Yes.
You're from Leicester.
0116.
Yeah, there we go. Tell me just a little bit about your experience, I guess, coming into the industries, and also how agencies or workplaces can make sure they're obtaining talent that's not just so London focused.
Yeah, I think my route into the industry was such a random, crazy, manic route into the industry. I obviously started as a kid, like I used to make cringy TikToks, and then it got picked up by people in industry who'd say, hey, let's come freelance for us. So I started filming a lot of queer club nights in London, and then my work started getting picked up by bigger agencies and bigger marketing people. And yeah, it's been really fun, but at the same time, I do feel like there's a lot of advantage being taken off of people. A lot of younger creatives do have all these amazing skills and talents, but are just not getting paid. And a lot of times when there's invoices, late payments, and brands will find ways to just say, oh yeah, do it for exposure, but then not pay their staff. And I think it does really suck, especially when you're working class creative as well, and you're not from London, and you have to pay rent, you have to survive. Like, it is pretty impossible. And I think a lot of times, a lot of agencies tend to overlook that fact that there is so much talent outside of the London bubble. For a lot of marketing reasons, it tends to stay in London, but there's never like things outside of London. And I just feel like there's so much creative talent in these cities that are just not being looked for.
Can I just say on that point as well? So I grew up in Birmingham, 0121, all that. And I actually started my career there running development programs for Birmingham Hippodrome and Birmingham Rep and other organisations. And from a lot of the insights that we got, because of Margaret Thatcher, again, I really love history, but I'm going to stop here in terms of the history insights. When everything was centralised into London and the manufacturing hubs weren't important anymore, all the creative industries and things kind of disappeared. And so kind of what we kind of need now within the space is more of an investment in the creative economies in like Manchester, in Liverpool, in Leicester, in Birmingham that are consistent. Because the one thing is that education programs pop up and then they disappear again. They'll be here for a year and then they won't get the funding the next year. And so I do think there's a real important role for brands and agencies to play in terms of committing to developing talent outside of the UK. But that can't just be like, we're going to do it because it will look cute for our reels this summer. That has to be multi-year deals. That has to be, okay, we're going to look at a longer term vision instead of a one and done, which is what we see a lot of the time now.
I'm from London, but one thing I will say is that I feel like this whole industry, like our job is to communicate with people and get them to relate to us so that they at the end buy your product, like if we're breaking it down and making it really simple. And I feel like if everything, you know, we do that's focused on a UK audience has a London-centric like lens on it, then there's so many people we just end up not speaking to. And I think like especially there's so much opportunity where a lot of other cities aren't used to being the focus of like a campaign or the focus of a product. If we're able to like target and say, this is for you guys, because we get this nuance that is like, you know, is like unique to Birmingham versus London, then there's way more like of that connection built. So I think like it's really important, even from like a commercial standpoint as well. It's not just something to do because, you know, it's good. It's actually is very commercially viable as well.
And they're huge like consumer cities as well. So Birmingham's the youngest city in Europe, so anyone doing stuff with TikTok, go there. But also the whole culture has kind of been built around consuming. We have the Bull Ring. If anyone goes to Birmingham, all they do is talk about the Bull Ring. And so I think it's important that if we are looking for consumers, we're also looking at developing the leaders and the creatives to lead and understand the nuance for those consumers. Because yeah, there's money to make, but there's also people to train.
And I wanted to touch on Russie, who curated our panel, now lives in Swansea. And I was chatting to her earlier, so it was really interesting that, you know, she's at a point in her career where she can manage to work for a London-based agency, but go and reside somewhere else, which can literally change your life. You know, you can afford to buy a house or even rent a place and be a bit more comfortable and live your life. And then harbour people in that area and build a bit more of a creative scene, or bringing people together in that area. And I think that's something that's really overlooked for young people. It's just seen as just accept the fact that you're not really going to get paid that much, you're going to have a real low quality of life, but you should just be lucky to be working in this industry. You should just, feel grateful to even be here. And I think it takes time to get to that point where you can advocate for yourself in that way, but I do think it's really important that we don't just focus on reaching London and then making it in London and then staying in London, because we're in an echo chamber and it's a hot mess.